Welcome everyone to Conversation with Adriana Velez. Today we are talking about stop judging. Yes, we all judge. We know that. And we're focusing on when we judge someone on what their exterior looks like, if it's tattoos, piercings, and so on and so forth, right? So if you're interested in listening to some more areas that maybe you'd be like, hey, maybe I am judging people that way, what can I do? I invite you to continue to listen to more of this talk. Thank you for joining. Stop judging. Yes, I know. I judge all the time, right? You judge probably all the time too. And as much as you don't want to judge, we do it because we all grow up from a different background. We have different ideas of what normal should look like. But what is normal? In reality, if we think about it, there's no like normal, let's say in quotations, of this is what it should look like. Because every person, depending where you grow up, I mean, this is not even saying like a culture of, or it is a culture, not a nationality so much. And so a lot of times we think like, oh, it's because you were born in Mexico, you were born in the United States, you were born in Canada, you were born, however you want to label someone, right? But even in that, there's a lot of differences in the culture. Just like it could be someone from two people from Mexico, two different places, two different cities, two different states, and you see a big difference. I mean, even in the way they talk. Someone, let's say in the United States, let's say if they're from California, compared to someone that is from, I don't know, Texas or somewhere else. There's just a lot of difference, and the normal is definitely different, right? But we still judge people, and it's not always in a negative way that we're trying to. We sometimes we're just like, they are different, and I would totally not do that. Uh, and you move on. And other times it's like I don't want to get to know that person because they look like I wouldn't be able to get along with them because of how they look, or sometimes their outer appearance can have like tattoos, piercings. Maybe their hair color is just constantly changing, and we can sometimes be religious if we think about it when we, I don't know, grow up in church. I'm Christian and I grew up in church, and there's a lot of growth that has happened in my life with understanding how to just walk in love, how to see people, just coming from a different background, coming from a different walk of life, and they're still people, right? And you continue to love people just because they're people, and if God loves them, like we should too, right? That's what it says in the Bible. So I really want to focus on that. Then we could be like, well, maybe I should cross on the other side because this person looks like, they are maybe in a gang, or, they just have just an appearance that you're like, it's probably not safe. But sometimes like those kind of judgments, they can like prevent some things, right? Because it wouldn't be smart for us to just be like, everybody's the best people in the world and we're just gonna go and talk to everyone, and like if we know them, or we are not gonna trust every single person, because realistically, like, there is a lot of people out there that are still trying to find their way. So, giving the simpler example, maybe at work, there's a coworker that maybe has tattoos, maybe looks a little rough around the edges, right? Let's just label it that way. And maybe they curse, and you're not used to that. You don't like that. You don't curse. Um, how are you approaching this person? Do you avoid this person as like, it's not the kind of people I want to associate with. It's not the people I want to talk to or befriend. Why? Like, because they're different. Okay. Well, think about it. They are going through a process. You don't know their background, you don't know what they're going through, um, and where they want to go, like where their goals and plans, purposes for their lives are. You know, not everybody comes in like put together when you meet someone, right? For the most part, we're all still in the process, and it could be and look different from person to person. I could clearly tell you that sometimes the outer appearance can be easier to label because you can see it, but sometimes people are struggling with way worse things that is not as obvious, you know. If you think about when people are maybe gossipers, you know, you don't realize that they might sound and seem really nice, and you know, they seem to want to be your friend, they seem to be interested in getting to know you, right? But then later on you find out this person was not a good person to befriend because um they like to gossip about each other, or they like to lie, steal, or whatever things that is not super obvious at the beginning, right? And they might have not had a tattoo, or their hair has never been dyed, or they have no piercings. Like it doesn't really mean anything, right? In the way that what you look like on the outside is not the replica of what you look like in the inside. And I would challenge to think, because whatever you know, you may see someone, whenever you may see someone that looks uh rough around the edges, if you know, we use that word, that term, sometimes they could be the most like friendly, loyal, like legit person that you meet, you know. And just because they've gone through life that maybe it was rougher than your life, it doesn't mean that they're less of a person. So just challenging you, whenever you, maybe you don't go to work, maybe you go to school, you're in college or high school or whatever it may be, right? Maybe you meet different people, and then you see some people that are maybe you think like, well, they don't look like they're coming to school, you know, because they dress a certain way, or like I said, they may have a lot of tattoos, and just be kind of like, I don't know, like what is this person doing here and everything. But at the same time, it's like we can't judge them for the outside. Like let's give people the opportunity to get to know them and who they are, who they really are, right? Where they're at in their process now. The same way, you may not have a tattoo, but yet again, you're in the process too, and they might not want to be around you because you're still like, you know, pretty. And I wouldn't say pretty low on it, on your process, but just kind of like at the start of it. I should say. And then even the tattoos, like before, they were more as a gang related symbol of, you know, representation. And to be honest, like it, tattoos are not really like that anymore. They're very common to add tattoos to our bodies in a artistic way, right? So it represents something, you know, not just like a group that you like go with to do things at night, but it's like, you know, your family, your children, your parents, your grandparents. Yes, there is some tattoos that is just, oh, I like this cartoon character and I'm gonna put it on, you know. And at the same time, as much as it's silly, there's nothing wrong with it too. I mean, it's just what you want to do at that time. Maybe people that put a tattoo when they're young, later on they're like regretting, like, why did I put this, I don't know, Betty Boo or whatever it may be, right? And especially when it doesn't mean anything, where that character is just, I used to like it, now I don't. Um, but we all live and we learn. And so I would definitely say, like, well, for somebody, and this is like tattoos in the way that, well, if you're being religious and you're like, well, they shouldn't have tattoos, and they should remove them. They should pay for removing it as they paid to get them on there or whatever. Like, that's not going to change, like, who they are. And I feel like whatever the past was, like, that's the past, and they are trying to move forward. And so a tattoo is not gonna push them back with God. At least not with God. I mean, with people, we keep on having these walls and this judgment towards people like that. Even like interviews, right? You have to cover every tattoo because a lot of times you're like, no, this person may be like into drugs, or, things like that people get labeled. And realistically, it's like, they might have dealt with that before. That doesn't mean that they're dealing with it now, And so it's funny how that being presentable, you have to hide things that you added to yourself. Honestly, thankfully, now it's not as strict in most places. But yeah, I remember not that long ago, it was very, very looked down upon, and even like piercings. Like for me, I have this nose piercing, and I would have to cover it in a place that I work at. I used to work in. And it was just kind of like, well, like everybody has them. Like, what? And it's funny because even like as a medical assistant back then, like if I had to cover it, but then like you may have a doctor that has it, but they don't have to cover it. So it's just like, I don't know, just more people were just, and I guess you can label them as educated people. They were still having tattoos. Why? Because it wasn't representing that you were out on the streets, in groups that you shouldn't be. It's just now part of the art and your expression, your art expression. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Of course, I'm not gonna tell you like what you should believe, and maybe in your beliefs you really think it's wrong, and that's fine. So don't do it, right? If you really strongly believe that you shouldn't, that that's not right, or label it as that's from the devil, or whatever you want to label it, that's fine. Don't do it. But stop judging people that do it, because their process and their experience may not be the same as yours. And I think that's the main part, the main point I wanted to get across this conversation about being okay with people believing differently. Being okay if, they're following Jesus, but it doesn't look like you following Jesus, like your process, your walk, At the end of the day, like, God is the one that continues to transform us, teach us how to follow him best, what to do, what not to do. If we really follow Jesus, the more you run to Jesus, all of a sudden you look back and you're like, wow, I used to struggle with this. I didn't even think about this anymore. Why? Because you were chasing after him. And so definitely I encourage you that if you're one of the people that you're like very strongly feelings about, your outer appearance has to be and look like a certain way, then like, pray for people that God would be the one that would teach them, show them how to, be better for who they're supposed to be. But that's not where you're gonna be like, oh, this person really, he's talking about a God, and look at, he has like all his arms tattooed, or his neck, or whatever, or like, don't just label people that like they have tattoos as in like they were in the streets, because a lot of times they weren't, they just like tattoos. And so again, it's from your background, where you grow up, who you grow up with. And so it's not going to define who you really are, right? I believe that every person that is running after Jesus, God is going to work in their lives in different ways. And it's going to look different, because he didn't make us all like a robot where we all look the same, right? We're all different people, individuals that, have our own likes, and just everything is different from one person to the other. But at the end of the day, if they love Jesus and they're seeking him and they're like spending time with him, and they're, like I said, running after Jesus, Jesus is the one that's gonna continue to like renew and transform the mind. and maybe they will feel like, I don't want any more tattoos, you know. I'm not saying because if it's good or bad. I'm saying like if it's something that personally Jesus is dealing with them, then that would be Jesus doing the change, not us. We cannot change people. No matter how much you judge people, you're not going to change anything. Like if you are judging someone that's, let's say, coming into a church, and they might change for a little bit, but if it doesn't change in the heart, it's not going to stick. And so definitely all these things, ideas that we have to just let it go and understand that the process for every person is different. The times for everyone is different. Yes, God doesn't change. I get it, and that's okay. But we have to understand that it's not up to us to force a change, because it doesn't really work that way. That we can just love people for who they are, no matter what they look like, no matter how many tattoos, piercings they have, or if their hair is blue or green or purple, you know, that we could just love people, and that they would just know who God is, and be able to experience the presence of God, and not put them in a mold that this is what you should look like, and this is how you should behave, and you know, you should be I don't know, being super quiet and just like do just everything like so like modest in an attitude, you know. I would definitely challenge that, because even that, like, I remember being judged for like being loud. Like, I'm naturally a happy person. I love just having a good time. I don't need to do any drugs or any alcohol or nothing like that. Like, if I'm spending time with my family, and I'm just going to, you know, celebrate someone's birthday or something, then I'm gonna do that, and I don't need to add anything to my system in order to have fun. But and I wouldn't say like people should or shouldn't do it, because I again, that's another area that the more you follow after Jesus, the better understanding you have of what you should and shouldn't do. And the more you read the Bible and ask the Holy Spirit to give you guidance, then he'll talk to you. But I don't think like people should say like, oh, this person is a real Christian because they act a certain way, right? Of course, there's always like limits, right? Because you don't want to go to one extreme or the other. But for someone to be like, you know, like, I guess people could call it rowdy, like, it doesn't mean that they don't love Jesus and they spend time with Jesus. Or like sometimes like, oh, well, I don't see this person pray. I don't see this person like, you know, read their Bible and stuff. Like, they don't have to do it in front of you. So stop judging and just love people. Like, in the Word of God, it does say to love God and love your neighbor, right? The Ten Commandments, they're all put into or summarized by Jesus into two, which is love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, right? And then love your neighbor. And this is the whole law, because if you love your neighbor, you're not going to do a lot of things that were in the Ten Commandments. But what does that mean? Loving your neighbor, like, if how would you feel if someone was judging your child, or your sister, your brother, your husband, whoever, or your mother, you know, and they're like, oh, this person, and it's like, hey, as it is, like, in the outer appearance, you can go to a store, and if they don't look a certain way, there is people that will judge you like with no filter whatsoever, and they will give you horrible customer service, because they see like, I don't like this person even though I don't know them. And I would definitely challenge like, walk in love, because wherever you go, like, how would you like to be treated, or your family to be treated? You might not think that you're judging someone as much, but you know, we all do it in a certain way, and we have to constantly ask God to give us more of his heart, to be able to love people the way he loves them, and to see people the way he sees them, you know, that they do have a hope, and they're in the process, but at the same time, the more they get to know Jesus, the more they're going to be able to experience freedom, and, you know, and change. And that would be a transformation from God, not from us. So stop judging. I would definitely encourage you to challenge yourself of every day just asking God, Give me your heart. Show me. Open my eyes to see people the way you see them. And I feel like God will be able to teach you how to love and to just, be there for people that are actually seeking the truth. So that's all I wanted to say. I really just wanted to focus and encourage people to just analyze our hearts and where our judgment may be, and really try to give it to God every day, because it's still not it's still something that's not going to help people. It's not going to do any good for them. So it's better if we just let it go. Well, thank you so much for watching. I am so thankful that you spend this time just in this conversation with Stop Judging, and practice that. And I hope to see you for the next episode.